Hey there, thank you for joining the Designated Pundits. We are previewing 30 Major League Soccer teams before the start of the 2025 season, and today we are talking FC Dallas. FC Dallas, I think this is team 25 out of 30. Just have a few more left after this. And we are joined by the one, the only bro migo, Jose Tellez. And he's a great host. You know him from Goals TV. I'm still learning, so I'm going to go now and plug the channel, which I have written really, really large on like a notebook every episode. The Designated Pundits. You can find us at thedesignatedpundits.com, youtube.com/@ The Designated Pundits, or wherever you listen to podcasts. You can go to designatedpundits.com and find some links there, or just search for us and we'll come right up. You subscribe, and that's going to help us bring videos like this to you each and every year, and then our gambling previews and recaps each and every week. So thank you guys for tuning in. Jose, how you doing today?
I'm good, man. It's Saturday. It's one of the warm, sunny Saturdays in Texas at this time of the year. Sounds ironic to say, but we got like this weird cold stretch kind of hitting the whole state right now. So, but with that said, I'm excited, man. MLS season's right around the corner, about a week away from it now. It's been a crazy long off season, so it's about time, man. Let's get into it. I'm ready.
I was going to see if my window would show. No, we're getting about 6 inches of snow right now. So we are on the opposite end. Scott, how you doing today?
I am doing well. I was coaching this morning, and now to follow that up with this, my team played really, really well, and now we're just
awesome.
It's just building. Everything is great today. The sun is shining. This is wonderful.
1 week to the Major League Soccer season, so let's get into it. Jose, before we get started, I'm asking everyone the same question. What's your favorite soccer memory from 2024?
Favorite soccer memory of 2024. Ooh, watching Driussi back pass into his own sort of back line and Musa finishing it off at Toyota Stadium in Frisco. I was there. I was right behind the net. It was amazing. I always think about that and laugh. I have a lot of Austin FC friends I was texting with at that very moment. So they got a pretty loud voice note from my side.
Awesome. I love it. You gotta the haterade. If it's not necessarily going your way, at least if your opponent is messing everything up. That's how I feel being a Red Bull fan this offseason with the NYCFC's moves. But today we are here to talk about FC Dallas. Let's first recap the 2024 MLS season. 11 wins, 8 draws, 15 losses was the record. 10-2-5 at home, 1-6-10 away. 11th in the Eastern Conference, missed the playoffs by 6 points. 54 goals scored and 56 goals conceded. Left you with a -2 goal differential. Great team at home. Awful on the road. That's not uncommon for Dallas. While the summer was a little less of a fortress there than it usually is, these geographical games with these West Coast teams can be tough. Let's talk about 2024.
Yeah, I mean, I think just a quick overcap reaction to it. And you cited the summer, right? The summer was the period where we probably had just the most makeshift lineups within the team throughout 2024. Injuries kind of plagued us a little bit, of course. It felt like, in all honesty, too, I know we sold Jesus Ferreira this offseason, but it felt like we sold him last offseason, right? Like him just not really being relevant at all with the 2024 team. Velasco, the same thing. I think when 3 of your DPs are out for the majority of the season, it kind of just shows or should offer some sort of preview or foreshadowing for what's to come. I think the last couple of years in general have just been screaming out for some sort of a rebuild that we're now going through. And so, I mean, look, in all honesty, 2024, I was very bullish on how good offensively we were supposed to be going into last season. I think a lot of FC Dallas fans were aware that we would have to very drastically outscore opponents to keep pace. I think defensively, we knew there were holes back there. I mean, we only signed Omer Gonzalez last season. That was the only help we had in that back line outside of guys like Tafari and Ibeagha. So it's something that had to be retooled, better late than never. But it did cost us. You can see the record on the road. It is absolutely shambolic. And I got to a point where I just assumed every away game we were going to give away all 3 points. I wasn't even, if we got a point out of it, it would have been amazing, but I was just assuming we were going to lose. So this year, I'm hoping that we can be a little bit better at home and away. We really have to try and focus on doing better on the road.
On the Bet US show, we loved Dallas because it was such a easy team to predict. Like, they're on the road, okay, they're going to lose or draw. Out of MLS teams, while they were not good, they were somewhat predictable than you might have expected. Let's take a look now at the offensive contributors. Batar Musa, 16 goals, 3 assists. Paul Arriola, 5 goals, 2 assists. You had Jesus Ferreira, 5 goals, 3 assists. Patrick Sindelgado, 4 goals, 2 assists. Logan Farrington, 4 and 5. E.R. Mendy with 2 and 5. And Leggett with 2 goals, 7 assists. Now, there is some top-end talent and a whole bunch of nothing behind it.
Facts. And I will say this, 3 of these players are no longer with FC Dallas, right? So you look at this, and I feel like this was the problem, right? Musa was literally having to do everything himself.
Yeah.
I've been very critical of Arriola for seasons now, multiple of them. I was hoping so badly that the Galaxy would have come in 2 seasons ago with that record trade offer. They ultimately did not, and that forced us to keep him for a little bit longer. I'm glad he's with Seattle now. Nothing against Arriola as a person, but I just feel like the wheels have completely fallen off with that guy to an extent. He'll probably have to go back to a wing-back position or something. Ferreira, again, injuries in and out, could not really contribute consistently throughout the season. I think the guy on this list that we will see more of this year in 2025 is going to be Farrington. I think Logan Big Dog Farrington is going to be, in my opinion, showing up more often than not. I like him a lot. I think the flashes we saw from him all throughout 2024, the runs he was making behind the back lines that we played against, he has like Musa-esque qualities to an extent. Musa's a significantly better finisher, but I feel like Farrington is going to be able to give us something off the bench on a more consistent basis in 2025. But I feel confident now, having signed Lucho, that I'm not worried about Jesus Ferreira's production, Arriola's production. I think that we'll be able to, as you can see with how low those numbers are, be able to supplant those in a nice way in 2025.
Love it. I have nothing to add to that. That was, I don't even have questions anymore. You answered any question I could think of. So let's talk about outgoing players, though, because you mentioned there's a rebuild. It's happening. Look, we usually do outgoing and incoming on the same page. We have a whole page now of outgoing players. Huge turnover, a couple of big names in here, like Jesus Ferreira. I don't know. Can you walk us through maybe a couple of these guys? Is there anybody that you're surprised by, or is anybody you think you're really going to miss?
Yeah, I think the one that surprised me the most was probably Nkosi Tafari. Has a great relationship with the fans. I've been somewhat, in moments, critical of him. I think at times he steps up in the big games. He's very much a moments player, right? So he was our best center back out of basically by default, right? Just the fact that we don't have great, star-studded back line back there in terms of center backs. And so Tafari was the best of a very middling crew. But I think Tafari showed up in the big moments. He was always there for Austin FC. He was always there for Houston. Like in the derbies, like he showed up in a big way. Even when big, giants of the league like LAFC would come to town, he was always there, right? And at times pumping in the goals that we needed to get those games over the line. But I'd also equally had moments against some of the minnows within MLS where he didn't show up and he'd make a costly mistake, or the ball distribution would just be awful for 45 plus minutes throughout the game. So he kind of was very back and forth at times throughout 2024, but it still surprised me that when that move to LAFC was announced, I thought it was just interesting, right? That we were knowing that we needed backline help. Even with Tafari back there, we had to add more pieces to our back line, and we're shipping him off to direct competition in the Western Conference. So that one stuck out to me as an interesting move. We'll see if that backfires at all. Outside of that, you could point to guys like Jesus Ferreira, right? Because of how long and what he stands for within the Dallas community. Just a massive, massive personality to have on the field, in the locker room. But I think the other one, if I had to just pick solely based on impact on the field, Sam Junka is a big one for me, at least for me personally. I think he started just about all games last season. When Marco Farfan was injured, Junka was holding it down at that left back spot, was even playing center back when we were very shallow in the back line. And I can't remember who who we traded him to. It was one of the first moves we made.
Salt Lake.
Salt Lake, that's what it was.
Scott's team.
Yeah, exactly. So I think Sam Juka, like, to me, he's underrated. And really, when you look at his starting point, right, Scott, you should be excited because at the end of the day, like, he had a very interesting starting point and quickly cemented his position within FC Dallas. I kind of see him as this pretty solid utility player all the way around. And to me, like, I mean, his goal contributions as a left back were also kind of interesting. So, you know, I feel like he's someone that will end up missing, especially when you look at our depth chart right now. We don't have a backup left back. Like, I would take Sam Juka right now in a heartbeat. So those two are the biggest ones that stand out for me. But outside of that, I mean, they're probably going to miss a little bit of guys like Velasco, Ferreira, etc.
Well, let's turn the page a little bit. I highlighted Sam in the RSL preview, but in trade you took Anderson Julio, who I think is a player that RSL will miss, and he is one among many new incoming players. There are some notable names in here. Names I guess that we recognize: Shaq Moore, Lucho Acosta. Who stands out to you?
Yeah, I think so. I was actually pretty happy with getting Abubakar for a number of reasons, right? I think one, he's MLS proven. We have to have that. I think taking risks with the back line with signings and transfer market activity, that's not an ideal situation, especially in this league. I think taking someone who maybe had a less than stellar season in his final season with Colorado, I still think if they would have found a way to make the contract work, Rapids fans would have taken him back in a heartbeat. I truly believe that. I think he stands for a lot back there. And frankly, we just need a lot of help with our back line. So Abubakar to me was someone that I was pretty happy with getting. Shaq Moore too, just because at the end of the day, if we're solely relying on Emma Tumasi and a banged up Giovanni Jesus, I don't know if we can rely on that right back position very much. So Shaq Moore, another one that's very MLS proven.
I think he is fantastic. I love Shaq Moore, and every time I see him play at Red Bull Arena when he was with Nashville, he plays big, and he's not that big, but his like, you know, in NFL, they have like a speed to size ratio index, whatever the heck they call that. I mean, he is elite in that category.
Yeah, I agree. And I think Shaq Moore is slept on by a lot of fans to an extent. I'm not like his biggest fan out there. It is kind of a homecoming for him, which is nice. But like, again, right, like going with proven MLS talent as opposed to taking risks with transfer market activity, I like seeing that, at least with rebuilding a team, right? You kind of want to have a solid foundation and know what your team, or at least have a good understanding of what they're going to offer game in and game out. And so I like those two signings a lot. Outside of that, I'm really glad we brought Paxton Delgado back, a very young Ecuadorian talent in that midfield who I think is only going to continue to progress in a big way now, especially without Ayala Mendy in there. So I'm expecting him to hopefully have a big season. But yeah, and of course, who can't be excited about Lucho Acosta being here? Like, I mean, it's literally our marquee signing for this transfer market. I did say on several other previews, we have to go out and get someone big to fill those shoes. An Evander, an Acosta, someone in that range to really kind of take over from the spot that Ferreira is leaving behind. And Musa just needs help, man. I mean, 16 goals with no one really feeding him a ton of great service. Imagine what he could do if he had a very prominent number 10 behind him. And now he's got that. Someone who's actually been getting better with age. And so, you know, I'm excited for what we've brought in so far.
I like some players to highlight here. I just want to touch on Diego Pepe. Is that related?
Yes, they are. Ricardo Pepe's little brother.
Love it. All right, let's move on to a depth chart here. Here is where we think things are going to line up for the 2025 season. This is certainly on week one. Starting from the back, Martin Pais in goal, just a solid, maybe above average shot stopper.
Yeah, and he's also very good with his feet. I actually believe Martin Pais, I think he led MLS in save percentage last year. It was like top 2, top 3, something along those lines. But granted, he made a lot of saves also because our back line was atrocious. So, you know, put a little asterisk next to that. But I do think, and of course, right, it does help now that he plays with the Indonesia national team. So our fan base is significantly bigger. But I think that with that said, yeah, great keeper all the way around. I like having him. There was rumors he was going to go off to Empoli last season during the window, and we were already kind of trending very downward at that point. So I was very scared we were going to ship him out. I'm glad he's back.
Looking at the two center backs, we have Sebastian Biaga and Osez. I'm going to guess here, Aragadi.
I've heard Aragidi, I've heard Irogide, I've heard all kinds of names. Yeah, I don't know much about him, to be frank. I still have to do a little more homework, I think. Ibeagha to me is gonna this has to be a big season for him. Absolutely has to. I think with Tafari gone, the question we've always kind of assumed Ibeagha was the number 2, just based on his ability. I think if he wants to prove that he deserves a consistent starting role in a team like this, he has to step up in a massive way. So I'm hoping we see that from him.
And you have Alvaro Augusto and Lawless Abubakar, who we've already spoken very briefly about, given that veteran presence in the back, guarding against injuries or schedule congestion there. Let's move out to the fullback position. I have Farfan on the left, Shaq Moore and Giovanni Jesus out on the right. Talk about maybe the depth, what you think the pecking order is, and also really important with the fullbacks, what the responsibilities are going to be. Are they going to be defend first or expected to get upfield a little bit?
I think with Shaq Moore, it definitely will be. I mean, we know he can push forward, but I think he's a better defender than Farfan. I think when push comes to shove and we throw numbers forward, I think Shaq Moore will be a little bit more conservative. And his counterpart on that same side, Giovanni Jesus, is more attacking minded. Now, the signing of Shaq Moore is very curious, right? Because I think it just tells me that Giovanni Jesus is not ready yet. That coming off that torn ACL at the end of 2023, that basically plagued him. We didn't see him at all in 2024. He was a very promising Brazilian right back that could create a lot of havoc down that right flank with his overlapping runs. I don't know when we'll see that again. I haven't heard any word about that yet. So Shaq Moore is going to be very prominent early on. And I think that by having Moore in there on the opposite side, you get Farfan, who will be the one to push forward. Like that's kind of what he's always been. Him and Junca had very similar playing styles and roles for that reason. And so very interchangeable between them if you had to rotate. So I do like Farfan being out wide. I like him and Anderson Julio hopefully getting chemistry as soon as possible because he'll be very key to kind of giving us additional numbers in the attack moving forward.
Moving up to the midfield, I'm really interested in this group because I think, you can roll out an MLS caliber defense and you can probably improve your defense. You only conceded like 1.6 goals per game last season, which was middle of the road, but you're like 0.2 of a goal back from being a top 10 defensive team, right? That 0.2 of a goal per game. So you're not like that far off, but I think it's the midfield that like elevates, takes you a little, up or down.
Yeah.
This feels like a new look midfield. And I'm not just talking about Lucho Acosta. Walk us through this. Sebastian Lletget, Ramiro Beniti, are they 6s, 8s? How does this style work now?
Yeah. So I think that we're going to see games start like this, like we have it on screen, where Ramiro is lining up next to Lletget, but as the match itself progresses, Ramiro will be more of a 6, 100%. I think he's going to be more of that. I won't call him a destroyer, right? But I think he will be kind of there to protect the back line as much as possible. Lletget's going to be given a license to move forward, right? To contribute with Acosta, with Musa, with our wingers, and just kind of give us stability in the attack. So if we do lose the ball, we can just press from the front, win it back as high as possible, or at a minimum, just delay them from getting to our back line so quickly. And that's the reason why we also see Nsabalang behind him, right? In my opinion, Shiki Nsabalang is a player that on other shows I've already highlighted as a player to watch in this midfield. I think we'll see plenty of times because Lletget is aging already. I think he's 32, something along those lines, because he's already kind of getting up there in age and the legs aren't all the way there. And Nsabalang will be key throughout the season. I think this will be his coming out party, if you will, right? His breakout season. He's someone that I've seen kind of move out wide. He's played interior as more of an attacking mid. He's creative in how he plays. And so I think him and Lletget will be very interchangeable. But I expect Ramiro, as the game moves throughout the 90 minutes, to sit a little further back, offer us some stability. And I can see Lletget combining more with Lucho to find Musa, to find our wingers and create those opportunities. So it probably will look a little more at times offensively like a 4-3-3. Like I can kind of see that with Acosta and Lletget being more of those midfielders who push a little bit more forward.
I like that. Even in fact, Nsabalang was listed as a winger on the previous depth chart, and I moved him back to that. So that kind of shows what that midfield position is going to do. He's going to be running up and down the field, box to box there. Let's take a look at these wingers. We'll go first with Anderson Julio, Leo Chu out left, and Kumungo out right with Anthony Ramirez somewhere there behind him.
Yeah. Kumungo is going to be interesting this season, and Bob, we talked about it privately before. Yeah. I think with Bernie, it's like fantastic potential. There's a lot of potential with this player. Still very raw. I think because of what Nico Estevez was trying to do before he got fired last season, we saw him everywhere. He was playing wing back. He was playing winger. Anywhere that we could utilize some of his speed, his breakaway talent. And now I think what Eric Quill is going to try and have him do, because he's left-footed, is be more of an inverted winger. So kind of utilize his pace a little bit more on the outside, try to create some opportunities for himself to go to goal. I kind of have this firm belief that until I see something different from Kumungo, I don't know how long he'll be starting. My personal opinion. I think right now, even in preseason, he's starting quite a bit. So this is the depth chart for sure. But I think at some point we acquired Leao Chu for a reason. I can see moments where Quill may want to use Anderson out wide on the right, where we saw him, I think, a lot for Real Salt Lake. So I think, by the end of the season, just based on experience, based on what I know about these players, and the verticality they will give this offense, I feel as though Chu will stay on the left. Julio will be probably more on the right. Kumungo will be a nice change of pace option off the bench, an impact player that we can lean on. But I feel like we're going to lean more towards the experienced talent that we have. That's why we went out and acquired them. So while right now I can see Julio and Chu being on one side, I just have to believe that at some point they're going to be interchangeable. And we're going to see either Chu or Julio move one end to the other.
Anderson Julio is definitely comfortable playing on either side. He came through on that right wing when he first appeared for RSL, and then he kind of transitioned into a middle role, but his speed, leads to him, getting wide to find space for sure.
Absolutely.
Talented player. He will routinely make the, absurd look easy. But on the flip side, sometimes he'll make the easy look a little too difficult. So
he did that crazy goal against it's so ironic, right? Like we signed him after he scored that halfway line goal, whatever that was last season against us when we traveled to RSL. So, hopefully we see more of that.
He's definitely got that confidence. I love that. But let's talk, a few words maybe about your striker, Petar Musa. We know his quality, 16 goals last season. And we've already said a few words maybe about Logan Farrington. Look, do you see any change in the way that they're setting up now that you've got this more talent around him?
Yes and no. I think now moving forward with the signings that we do have, true proper wingers, because keep in mind, right? Like even when we had Velasco, who I consider to be a proper winger, we were using him out of position. We were using him as a 10. Ferreira, we didn't know what he played, if he was a striker, a cam, or a winger. So he was kind of all over the place. I think right now in this version of our team, we have tried and true wingers now. So I think there's going to be a more confident approach in how we attack defenses. I do think that we're going to be able to carry the ball a little bit deeper towards the byline to find Musa in the box. Whereas last year, he has so many goals, I think, because he honestly had to create those opportunities for himself. He was taking shots from outside the box. He was, we'd hit a ball over the top and he was just using his strength and his pace to get behind back lines and finish them. So now I feel like we're actually going to get a chance to see plays offensively develop in the attacking third, carrying the ball as close to the line as possible. And hopefully just creating more of these, I don't know, I guess you could say layups, right? Or easier opportunities that, these little kind of tap ins near the goal line, just opportunities for him not to have to work so hard for every goal that he possibly gets. So obviously with Musa, I can't think of anybody who's going to not rate this player at this point. I think he's shown enough that he can definitely compete in MLS. We'll see if this ends up being maybe his, I don't want to say it, but maybe his last season. There were already rumors this past offseason swirling around about him potentially going back to Europe. But either way, while we have him, I think he's definitely going to be our shining star, even with someone like Lucho Acosta being on the roster.
I think if he's not a golden boot contender, then the season should be considered a disappointment for him. I really think that it's absolute. The sky is the limit.
Yeah, I agree. And then even behind him, right? Farrington is someone that I still a lot more raw, but I see a lot of the same intangibles. And I'm hoping that again, he kind of just finds a way to build on it, double his goal tally from last season, even if it means it's coming in cup competitions or elsewhere.
Love it. Let's move on to some 2025 storylines. I have these posed as questions, but they're kind of, some of them are just things we're going to have to monitor throughout the year. First, can they improve their road record? I mean, it really can't get worse, right?
I hope so. God, I hope so. Like one win on the road. I remember that day we got, it honestly felt like Mission Impossible, and then we finally got the win. So it has to happen this season.
Next one, can Luciano Acosta be made happy? Like, he wanted to leave to go to a MLS Cup contender as if he wasn't already on one, and now he's going to Dallas, and it seems like it's more of a struggle, and there might be a little more on his back, and he might have to get used to losing some matches away from home. What do you think?
I think he can be happy. My bigger question is, I think he was also looking at opportunities to leave MLS, right? And I think that that's going to be something like, what his family might be thinking right now. Yeah. Are they going to be happy in Texas as opposed to what they were experiencing in Ohio? I'm really hoping so. I do feel like Lucho is the kind of player that will carry a lot on his shoulders, regardless of the team that he's on, just because of who he's become in the last 4 or 5 seasons. So I think he expected that coming into this team. I'm hoping that we can allow him to link up with Musa pretty quickly. I think if he finds some of the same chemistry he used to have with Brandon Vasquez, this becomes a lot of fun for him. And if it's a lot of fun for him, he's going to be happy. He'll be more inclined to stay. So that's what I'm hoping for.
Interesting. I would have thought he would have wanted to run one with Oriano and Dinky. Like, that's going to be such an elite attack. He could have had 35 assists next season. All right. Does Dallas have roster freedom, and how are the financials looking? I have Lucho and Pitar Musa as designated players.
Yes, correct. And look, man, we sold. Well, first off, Zanota. As much as criticism as I've given him as a GM, I gotta give him some applause too. He literally sold Velasco for what was it, $12 million to Boca, coming off of an ACL tear. We didn't even see him play all that much in 2024. The Ferreira deal, I think, was also pretty solid all the way around. He seemed like he wanted out. Getting Ariola off the books was massive. So there is still some roster freedom, and they're still saying they want to make one more, first team caliber signing before we get really far into the season, before the summer window, potentially, right? Otherwise, we wait until summer. We'll see what happens then. I think it'll be someone to help Ramiro in the middle of that field, right? We lost to Yaramendi. That's a big one for us. Even though he was aging, he controlled a lot of the game. So the financials are in a pretty solid spot. I don't know if we have enough time to make one more signing, but the ambition is still there from what I've heard.
I have a question from a viewer. I'm going to pull it up. It's going to go over your face. Sorry about that. You're good. Just the way the program works. I like FC Dallas. I just have no faith in the coach. We have not talked about Eric Quill yet.
Yeah. Tell you what, if for people who don't have faith in the coach, I think it's more because they don't know much about him, right? He came from USL. But keep in mind, right, Dallas, our identity as whether it's through players, staff, anybody else, we like to bring back our own, right? And that's very much what he is, former member of the Dallas Burn. And I think he has this mentality that Nico never really had, right? We're going to be respected moving forward. And I think Nico tried too hard to bring European soccer tactics to MLS through the lens of FC Dallas. And that's why you could see, right, his slow progression slow regression up until the point he was fired. His best season was the very first season we had with Dallas. I think with Eric Quill, it's going to be less about finding talented players and more about just getting the best work ethic wise, mentality wise from the players that we have, which now seem to be a mix of proven MLS talent, 2 really good DPs, and then you sprinkle in academy products that embrace the same philosophy, the same mentality. I'm okay with what I've seen from Eric Quill so far, and what he's saying in the press conferences, along with what I'm seeing in preseason so far, has me more motivated than I was under Nico Estevez.
What else do you know about his overall tactics and stuff like that?
I think with New Mexico United, it was tough to get a sense of what I guess the special things he might have been doing tactically. To me, I mean, he set up in some pretty straightforward ways, 4-2-3-1s, 4-4-2s at times at New Mexico United, but nothing revolutionary, and that could have been due to the talent he had at his disposal. What I will say that stood out about the results with New Mexico United was the progression kind of year over year. And then when you hear the front office over there talk about how the players shifted, and kind of the ones who weren't buying in, how they were shipped out pretty quickly, it just seems like he's a my way or the highway type of coach in the best way possible. And that's that has me inspired. I think at times, if you watched Dallas last season, you've like, maybe they didn't even want to be there. Maybe they didn't. Some of these players didn't even weren't even properly motivated to go out and give their all for this club that they have some loose attachment or affiliate with, right? So sure. I don't know. For me, I want to go back to the days where it felt like our homegrown talents were dying for the badge on the field. If it takes one of our own from previous years to come back and do that, I'm all about it.
Well, I love teams with good fundamentals too. So even if he doesn't bring out special wrinkles to the strategy, if he raises the level of the fundamentals on the team, and with Lucho Acosta, and some of the other players you brought in, that's hard to not raise the fundamentals of the team, but that's usually a good sign.
Agreed.
Looking forward, put on your prediction cap. Let's look at what's like realistic for this team. What's the best possible outcome for this team? What's the worst possible outcome for this team? What has to go right? What has to go wrong?
Yeah. Realistically, with Lucho on board now, Bubble FC, man, that's probably the best way to put it, right? Like, I think we're on that line. Like, it's like, we'll see, right? Like, finishing 11th last season, you can't sign one or two very good players and just make a gigantic jump. That's not how this league works. I think that we're going to be scrapping for a wild card spot. Like, I think that's probably where we are. And if we exceed that realistically throughout the course of the season, it's all house money. That's what we're playing with. Like, to me, that's all just a gigantic W. And not just for the players, but for Eric Quill specifically, right? So I think realistically, a team that's on the bubble of earning a playoff spot, even if it is one of those final two. And if we get that, we get back into the postseason. We just continue to build on that season over season. So that's what I'm looking for, considering how bad we were, especially in the latter stages of the season.
Can you be the best team in Texas?
Yes. Yes, 1,000%. You know why? Not so much because of who we've added. Mikael leaves Houston, top 3 center back in my perspective in MLS, gone.
Huge.
And
we didn't get to preview them yet. That's coming on Monday.
Oh, dude, that's going to be a big one. Yeah. And I'm curious. I literally messaged a buddy of mine who's a Houston fan. I was like, Moose is about a feast now. Just going down there. We'll see how it goes. But I think we beat Houston twice last season. We beat Austin once. No, sorry. We beat Andrew against Houston, and then we beat Austin 2 of the 3 times that we played them. So even in one of our worst seasons in recent history, we're already doing it. We have a better team this year, in my opinion. So that should be more than doable. But with Austin, of course, they took our old coach. They brought in Vasquez. No more Driussi, to me, is the big wrinkle in that team. So we'll see what happens, but I fully expect us to beat both.
Let's, I guess my kind of final question here is, what's one storyline to follow that impacts Dallas's season the most? What is success or failure going to depend on this year?
Musa and Acosta. The combination of those two players. Like, they have to find the chemistry. And that's something that I think a lot of people are just assuming will happen. I don't ever make that assumption. I've seen so many players move on to certain teams, big name European talents come in here to ride off into the sunset, and it doesn't work. And so it's just one of those things where they have to find a way to constantly find each other. If there's growing pains at the beginning, sure. But if they can find a way to really just, again, have this sixth sense with each other on the field, right? Always manage to be in the right spots to link up with one another. Oh, man, I'm going to be in dreamland, guys. Absolutely. But we have to have that. Otherwise, the signing itself of Acosta will start coming into question.
Chemistry is never guaranteed, but we're going to find out real soon. Major League Soccer season starts 1 week from today. That's going to be really exciting. Make sure you subscribe to the Designated Pundits. We're going to be here not sure if it's going to be Sunday or Monday yet. Maybe we'll dab a little Sunday afternoon recap show. We have to see what's going on here. We're not going to wait till Tuesday. That's too far. But Thursdays, we know we're back every single week with predictions for the weekend's matches. That'll be our sportsbook show. We hope you guys join us there. Let us know one more time, Jose, where we can find your work.
Yes, Goals TV, guys. Goals TV YouTube channel, Goals TV on socials. If you want to find me personally, at It's Bro Migo on Twitter or any other platform. Yeah, man, I'm always talking FC Dallas, MLS, anything in between. a week away. I'm going to be doing on the Goals TV channel more kind of live streams as soon as the primetime games are done. Hopefully we'll see, you know, Bob and Scott, other creators out there joining up with those. It's going to be a lot of fun. So again, a week away from greatness starting up all over again.
We appreciate your time. Thank you so much for taking the time out to be here with us today. And everyone at home, thank you for tuning in. Have a great weekend.